friends. Welcome to the Normalizing Average podcast. Join us as we dive into the stories behind the people who have overcome setbacks to achieve success, celebrating the average moments on the path to extraordinary results. Let's go.
Hey guys, this is Eve. We are back with the Normalizing Average podcast, and it is my pleasure to bring to the show one of our most excellent coffee shops in Revelstoke and an amazing duo. We have John and Lauren from Dose, from right here, Revelstoke, BC. And our bio is, after living out their dream of exploring Canada's West Coast, John and Lauren wanted more. They wanted to make a home in Revelstoke Mountains, but not just a house. It meant immersing themselves in the community. Originally from sunny Australia, coffee-loving shores of Australia, John and Lauren quickly embraced the idea of opening up a coffee shop, one that looked, tasted, and smelled like home. Back in 2016, Dose started as a genuinely heartfelt community effort. Friends helped build it, neighbors donated tables and chairs, and it's a product of our community, of a community who came together to give it life, which is, reading that was a big part of why I wanted to chat with you guys about the show, because it's so palatable, seeing what you've built over the years and seeing this awesome community that you've developed that I think is both hard to do and really unique. Now the chairs match, the kitchen has expanded, but the coffee and vibes have not changed a bit. And I'd like to welcome John and Lauren from Dose. Hey guys.
Hi, thanks for having us.
All right, so why don't you guys kick us off with just telling us your story? How did whether you want to go with your partnership and how you came to be and came to Revelstoke and then came to start a coffee shop.
You're the best storyteller.
So I guess just quickly, like a bit of background information about Lauren and myself and our history is, I'm not originally from the coast. I'm from the snowy mountains of Australia, big farmland. I grew up like bull riding and really close to the snow, but not ever within kind of like it wasn't obtainable for us financially as a family or anything like that. So it was one of my big dreams to always come over here. And throughout that process, leaving there, I moved to the coast, and that's where Lauren and I met shortly after me moving up there. We had a really, obviously a great, amazing relationship from the start. Lauren can actually take over here.
So we met, I was working in a retail store on Hastings Street, which is kind of like this bustling little, like, beautiful utopia in a town called Noosa Heads, which is just on the beach, and it's pretty amazing.
So it's just like BC's Hastings Street.
Exactly.
It's exactly the same.
But yeah, so I worked at Ed Hardy, which was a pretty on-trend brand back then, kind of cringeworthy now. But yeah, I was the manager at Ed Hardy, and John worked at a cute little cocktail bar across the street. And one of my best friends sort of played matchmaker and got us together, which took a little while, but we got there in the end. We'd both kind of just been through breakups, and we're the cliche, like, oh, we're not ready to meet anyone at this time, but it just worked out. But yeah, we putted around the Sunshine Coast for a little bit. We went and did 2 snow seasons, one in Jindabyne, which is like Perisher Threadbow area, and then one at Falls Creek. And then John kind of just patiently waited till I finished my uni degree. And once we got that out of the way, we basically applied for our visa to come to Canada, and moved over in January 2014. So
why Canada?
We had a couple of friends who were in Revelstoke already, so it seemed like kind of an easy choice. It's easy to get a visa to come over here. It's an English-speaking country. And we kind of just figured it was like a good gateway. Like, our plan was to come over, do a snow season, and then spend our summers traveling. So it's a good gateway to South America, like lots of places that were on our list, along with Canada. Obviously, we wanted to explore Canada. But yeah, so far it's been basically, we've explored BC in 8 years or something like that. So
it's that good.
yeah, it's that good. So yeah, we've been together for about we're not exactly sure when we officially started dating, but about 12 years or something along those lines. And yeah, so we came over, and Revi was just an easy choice because we had a couple of friends. One of them was an old school friend of John's, so they go way back, who was already here. So accommodation was kind of easy. We had connections on the ground and everything like that.
And as me growing up like close to the snow and always wanting to be a part of that, that was a big driving force to trying to find out where the best place would be to come to actually go skiing or snowboarding. We just knew that there was two places that we didn't really want to end up, and one was Banff and the other one was Whistler.
Yeah.
And so this seemed like a really, really attractive place for us at that time. And we definitely thought we were going to be here for the 2 years and then be on our way, but life had different plans for us. So pretty glad that we just like let it all fall into place as it did. But from there we got here. Jobs were a little bit different and harder to get back in 2014, I feel.
Big time.
Like there wasn't as many, there was email addresses, but maybe not so many active email addresses that people would get back to you. So we kind of scrimped and scraped for jobs at that coming over December, January kind of time was not the best. So I ended up.
But we made like a good connection. Like we ended up working for the resort for a couple of years. John was like a sandwich guy at Revelation Lodge, and I worked on, we called it Coffee Island. Yeah. So yeah, and that worked out. We were there for 2.5 seasons, like that half season, and then we went back 2 consecutive years after that. And it was a great way to like meet people. It was a good foot in the door, like you get your seasons pass and everything like that. Like I still recommend people to this day when they come to town and looking for work, like it's a great job up there at the resort, and it gives you a way to meet a lot of people very quickly. So that was pretty cool.
And especially just being like a part of that, it's a different organism, somewhere living up there and then living it like in maybe not a downtown core. I feel like you have to do your time in one of the 5 boroughs of Revelstoke, whether it be like over in Big Eddy, Columbia Park, or up at Johnson Heights. So yeah, we lived in Crack Flats, worked up at the resort, and it was a time. It was really cool actually learning that side of what Revelstoke had to offer. And then after our 2 years were up, we kind of decided that we should stay in Revelstoke for the remaining 6 months of our visa, as it'd been so kind to us in the past. So we thought we should give it a chance in the summer. Most of our friends would just take off in the summer. Our first summer, we used to do a lot of festivals. I would always want to go to Burning Man, a few arts festivals like that. So we got those under our belt in the first year. Then our second summer, we decided to go tree planting, kind of pay it forward to Canada. And that was a cool experience as well. Made some lifelong friends, obviously, out of that. And then the third one, we're just going to chill, see out the rest of our visa and kind of take off. With that being said, we kind of really discovered how beautiful Revelstoke was, and a lot of the secrets that locals would hold like a little bit closer to their heart. And until you're a 4-season kind of a person in town or a bit more of a local, you kind of you'd get shown these little spots, which was really cool. And then also moving down into downtown and working in establishments downtown gave us a real good understanding of the community that we hadn't really got to be a part of, working up at the ski hill as well. So it was a good marriage of the two worlds coming together.
And yeah, when we first came over here, John was like straight away, he was hooked on the Canadian dream, and he kind of saw himself like living here a little bit more longer term. But I was definitely more of a like, let's stay for 2 years and then get home to our family and go about, like I just finished my degree before we came over here, so I was excited to get back there and go and utilize that. But I think for me, the turning point was just when we stayed here for the summer. And it felt like a home. It felt like somewhere I could see myself for the foreseeable future. So at that point, I think we decided to like quickly figure out how we could stay that little bit longer. And at this point, it was just going to be a couple of years. But we just kind of started throwing some ideas around. And I think it was just the perfect summer. Like, it was so nice. The weather was beautiful. Like, town just felt like, I don't know, homey. And so we were like, oh, let's look at ways to stay here without like kind of just keep serving or like bartending or anything. So we thought we'd give it a crack and like do a mobile coffee cart or something along those lines. Just kind of something temporary. But as we kind of kept progressing and like digging a little deeper and researching, it seemed to be that like everything was pointing us towards like more of a permanent location. And so that's where
I would
it all
say
evolved.
ignorance is bliss.
Definitely.
I think big time. Like, there's a lot of things I look back at and I'm like, wow, I can't believe we did it that way. But we
didn't have much to lose either. Like, it was, to us, it was just like the 20 grand in our bank account. Like, who cares? Like, if we fuck it up that badly, like, you know, we'll just start again. We're reasonably young and we'll just go home and figure it out.
We had a short amount of time and like a really small budget as well. So we're just going to see if risk it for a biscuit and see if it works.
It's interesting, as I'll just touch on I also found that Revelstoke really, came for skiing and then stayed for summer. And then I found out like, oh, this is what this community is really like. It really comes alive in the summer because everybody's out and about. It's light for most of the 24 hours. It's got to be light for like 19 of them. People are just out and they're biking and skating, and there's just dirt biking, and it's really just feels like you get a really sense of what the community really is. And then you find those secret spots because there's more of these hikes and lookouts and cool stuff that just happens in the summer that you don't necessarily get to experience in the winter. Like, they're both epic, but I find the community really comes alive.
For sure. Even like in the winter, we barely see our neighbors. You know, they're always out in their garden in the summer, and we constantly just chatting over the fence about random shit. But in the winter, it's like I miss them. We don't really see them too much.
Big time.
We're all kind of just homebodies in the winter.
Everybody goes into hibernation.
Totally.
You guys had mentioned and I'm curious to know, you had mentioned the Canadian dream coming from Australia. What does that mean for you?
Oh, well, I think I don't know, for John,
for me, it kind of just meant like
snowboarding.
And it's a different attitude over here as well. It's a different outlook a little bit on life. Like, I think everyone gets that outlook once they reach a certain stage, but like, it seemed like to me in Canada that everyone's very supportive if you're gonna try something, and you're cool to do whatever you want, and you'll be supported as long as you're not a dick. In all honesty, it was really, really cool. So I liked people's attitudes, outlook over here, and me being originally from the mountains, I'm like I like the mountains. I like the smell of the forest and everything like that. So it was very homey. Like, I wish nothing else. Like, I moved out when I was 15. I got far away from home. Like, I really wished to never ever live in a town like that again. I think it's quite ironic that I moved across the other side of the world and found a town on a larger scale, but very, very similar to the dynamics that I was brought up in a town like this. So it was
it's kind of like your natural habitat, but without the kind of like childhood stuff that you didn't really want to
exactly
be around.
It still felt like home here. It wasn't the town as much as it was everything else that came with it.
Totally.
And I think you've got to be a certain person to be from the ocean. Unfortunately, as much as I've dabbled in surfing and everything like that, but like any of my friends that have come over here who grew up by the ocean, they have a time limit. They have an itch where they just have to get back by the ocean. So I understand that, and I feel like it's kind of the same for me with the mountains in a sense.
Totally.
Cool.
And then so 2016, you guys start up the business. So did it started as a mobile coffee shop or a mobile
No,
coffee cart?
we bypassed that. Like, yeah, we were working at the beer house at the time, and we kind of chatted to Trevor about, he's got this shed out the back of the beer house, in the back alleyway, and that was like one of our first ideas, was to turn that into like a back alley coffee joint kind of thing. But we couldn't wrap our heads around how on earth, like, A, we weren't going to freeze to death in the winter because it wasn't really like built for that, and B, like how people like. Yeah.
How are we going to attract people?
Anyway,
yeah, like ignorance is bliss.
We were totally like, no option was off limits. Like we were just like, really, like, as John said, ignorance is bliss. Like we were pretty headstrong, and we were going to make it work one way or another. But yeah, and then another idea was to do it in the beer house, kind of like by day, and then beer house by night. But we couldn't, again, quite wrap our heads around how we would like make that place our own during the day and then turn it into the beer house at night. So it was just like going through all these options. And then Joe Lammers, actually one of our local real estate agents, Joe Lammers,
the boss.
Legend. He was like, and at the time, Lisa, I can't remember her last name, she had that art gallery sort of wine bar situation happening where Dose is now.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, she's kind of keen to like sublet during the day. So if you guys want, I can introduce you and you can have a chat. So we did, again, like had a chat to Lisa, but we just couldn't imagine. Again, we had a pretty strong idea in our heads based on like what we kind of grew up with in Australia of how we wanted this coffee shop to look, how we wanted it to feel. And again, we're just like, no, I don't think like we can operate under someone else's roof. Like we just want that full creative control, freedom and stuff like that. So we turned that down, I think. And then a couple of weeks later, she decided that she had another idea that she wanted to pursue, and if we wanted to take that space over, completely take over the lease, then it was ours. So that's how we ended up there. So yeah, it quickly went from very temporary mobile solution to like, okay, crap, we've got this space, and then it just kind of evolved from there. Sorry, I cut you off.
That's all right, I forgot what I was going to say.
Yeah. So one thing, I wanted to ask you guys, because there was like, when you guys opened, there was no shortage of coffee shops in Revelstoke, but you saw something that was missing in the marketplace. And like, admittedly, I didn't see it. And probably like a couple other business owners or like people who run businesses, start business before, walk by and they're like, a coffee shop? Like, I don't know, guys. But I've just been so impressed with just how much you nailed it, and arguably became like, so you took a lot of business from a lot of other places, and also at the same time created this whole thing that was missing in our marketplace, and like completely nailed your market. But why, like, how did you get across taking, because there's a risk element there. You're like, okay, is this gonna fly? Or is like the people who go to the modern, the people who go to conversations. I bet it's got their thing. You know, how did you get past the risk element?
It's definitely, I mean, we wanted to create a community, and just like we touched on at the very start, that was missing within that. Like they all had their own separate little kind of communities, definitely. But
I think it was like, I think just where we're from, like, I don't know, there was, when I said to John, like, hey, John, I can live here if this is what you want, like long term, but we need good coffee, and like we need somewhere like, not that but we need good coffee, and we need a place that feels like home in terms of a coffee shop. Like that was just a morning ritual for me on my commute to work. Like I used to drive 40 minutes to work, and I'd stop by Bean Drop every morning in Noosa and get a coffee. And it's just like, it's a real, I don't know, it's hard to explain. It's like, I just knew that there was like, we needed that place that I used to have back home in Revelstoke.
You saw it, like you could see that it was missing. You're like, hey, here's the marketplace, but I can see there's a need in this marketplace, and here's a whole community that is not being served. It's hard to put your finger on it. I don't know, I guess, just growing up with it, like I just knew there was like, that it had its place here as well. But also just like total like ignorance as well, and just like willing to risk it all and give it a shot and see how it goes.
The last boss I actually had. He popped in. I hadn't seen him in the last 5 years. And he popped past a coffee shop the other day, and it was really cool to see him. But he's like, I'm glad you guys made this. He's like, it takes a certain type of crazy to be an entrepreneur. I don't even want to put us in that kind of category or anything, but he's like, you guys had it. You also had a lot of ignorance, but I was really hoping it did work for you, and it has. And it's really hard to put it down to like one thing that we've seen in the market that was missing to be able to make it work. But I think a big one, like for me personally, was I couldn't envision moving into a town or a community and not playing a role in any way or sense. So it was a big thing of us wanting to contribute what we had from our heritage or our background to be able to showcase that we could kind of be a contributing factor of the community as well.
And I think also like a big thing that we try and focus on, and we always bring up with our staff, and it's so simple, but it so often gets overlooked, or just hospitality in general just doesn't quite nail it. And it's about not just the product, not just the service, and not just the atmosphere, but all three of those together. And I think you so often walk into a place and have the most incredible breakfast, but the server was kind of or whatever, or the music is just off, or there's no music or anything like that. So we always kind of strive to like hit all three of those things. And I'm not saying we're perfect, we definitely don't get it every time, but yeah, just like there's a certain level of quality when it comes to hospitality in Australia. I think that's something that Australians do really, really well, and makes us proud to be Australian. So I think like bringing that from, which is just so ingrained in us from working in hospitality back home, John more so, but there's definitely a certain quality and a certain standard that Australians bring to the hospitality industry. So yeah.
That's almost like a good like business trifecta takeaway from you guys, because a lot of people in the hospitality industry miss one of those things. And sometimes it baffles me. I'm like, you have a great service, great product, but I'm like, I don't enjoy literally being in here. Exactly. In one location, another location, fantastic atmosphere, terrible service, and so it's really understanding, which I think is something brilliant, whether you guys did that like very purposely from the start, that you just knew, and that came from your backgrounds and came from your culture, knowing what was important. But that's obviously been a huge key for your success.
That, and like just doing your best in anything that you try, and being honest, and just treating people the way that you'd like to be treated as well. So a big thing that we really focused on as well, and it was hard, like at the very start, it'd have people walking past, I'd just get all the stuff, like we'd all wave to people, even just to try and like gain any kind of attraction, that because people would walk past. You'd have people coming in asking for a coffee, but at that time we didn't have enough money to have filtered coffee and espresso. We focused on espresso, and we'd have people that just turn around and walk out. So it was very disheartening, and it is a big space to walk into, and a big open space. I always wanted to make it feel like a living room or anybody's own home. Everyone feels comfortable in it. So we'd always be shouting out hello to people as they walked in. So it wasn't walking into this big daunting space and feeling uncomfortable. We've always really tried to push like equality there, and just not even on all the senses that shit has gone with in the world today. Like it's just crazy. But we push equality because we actually believe in it, not because it's a trending thing by any means.
And I think like definitely a huge shout out obviously would have to go to all the people that helped us in that first hurdle of actually getting the doors open. Like one of our best friends, Ivan, who's now gone back home, he showed up to Canada, and obviously he was like one of our first staff, and he stuck with us for a couple of years. But like we were in there for like 20 hours a day, like sanding pallet wood that we got from the dump and stuff like that. One of our friends, Stan, who owns a bakery in Western Australia, and is friends with a lot of local guys like Catlin and stuff like that, he would come over every winter. So for a couple of months just to ski, but he was in there every night giving us advice and tips. And like we had probably like 15 people show up every day offering to help in the lead up to it. And it was really amazing and sometimes really overwhelming. We just like, because we didn't have the mental headspace to even be able to like delegate or like tell people what to do. But it was all those people that really helped us get over the line and open by the end of January. I think it took us about 3 months in the end to renovate. And I was away for one of those months. I went back to Australia.
It's a good time.
So like the fact, like I'm pretty impressed by that because we just closed for another renovation like a year and a half ago. I mean, a year and a half ago. Yeah, a year and a half. Yeah. Time flies. But like even that took us like, we were like, oh, 2 weeks, but that took a month. And we had plumbers, we had electricians, we actually had real people helping us, not just like us trying to figure it out, you know, like Bob Dixon, what a legend.
Yeah.
So like real people helping us. So yeah, the fact that we managed to get it open was really like largely due in part to all these volunteers that would just show up every day. And then they became our customers and they supported us every day. So
wow.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
What do you think was the hardest part about the process of getting open and building? Was it building it out? Was it like permitting?
Probably building, I would say, really.
Yeah, permitting seemed to be a pretty cool thing then.
Yeah.
We pushed and pushed and it's like, just put brown paper up. Just put paper up in the windows. I'm like, oh, I get it. Cool. I see. So, and yeah, honestly, again, ignorance, and we're very cowboy about the way that we went about a lot of things. So permits at that stage wasn't a problem because we're just doing renovations. And then honestly, the hardest part about getting, we did a lot of silly things. We sanded the entire roof. I think that was probably like one of the hardest things about like, that wasn't a hard thing. We just did. Hardest thing about getting open was worrying about what other people might think. And if you had everything in place, rather than just believing in yourself and opening the doors. Like there was probably the last week was faffing and making sure that we might have this ready or we might have that. And nothing's ever going to be perfect. You've just got to open the doors and let the first customer in. It's just like learning. You don't gain that experience if you don't try.
Yeah, I think letting go of perfection a little bit and just that last like push when you're kind of sleep deprived and like just strung out, stressed, and just like the fear of not knowing, just pushing through those final hurdles. And then, yeah, obviously cash flow as well, like towards the end, like everything just blows out. And like, we didn't have a line of credit. Like we couldn't get a credit card until we'd been open for about 3 years.
No way.
We didn't have like anything, you know what I mean? So shout out to our family who helped us, like, you know, like give us some cash towards the end to get through. But then it was just like a matter of getting open so we could get some cash coming in so we could make our first payroll work and like actually have money in the bank to pay our staff after the first fortnight or whatever. So yeah, I think it all just kind of boiled down to like mainly just like the mental struggles, I think, and just pushing through those to get open was probably some of the most challenging. And just the building, like it can make you just feel so stupid when you're like, how do we like how do we build a bar, or like how do we do it? We have no idea. So like there was so much timber in that bar, so much unnecessary timber that didn't need to be there, but we just like could not fathom how to make it work. But yeah, so just trying to build or do something that you're so unequipped for when you're kind of a little bit stressed and tired and everything like that was probably one of the most challenging parts for me anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all these emotional hurdles. It's like, and you probably are also just exhausted in general from building for months.
Yeah.
But it's the hurdles of, okay, here we go. Like we did it.
Yeah, for sure. Just getting the doors
Now
open and
let's
just
go.
like, yeah. And like John said, just, you can only, just having the best product that you can. Like it's not going to be perfect like you maybe wanted to or how you envision, but just delivering the best product you can with what you have, with your means, I think is like such a key thing to do, and not wait until it's perfect because it will probably never be perfect. Yeah.
I find people, including us, you push and push and push and you forget to look after yourself.
Yeah.
and then that plays a huge role. You can like, you need to give yourself rest and fuel to be able to commit to accomplishing anything. The amount of times I push it for so long, and then I'm not proud of this, but I'd get to the A&W drive-through and they were closed, and then I'd cry because we had no food. And then it's just like this ongoing saga that could be really easily avoidable if you just thought a little bit clearly in those stages as well. So
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but it can be hard when you're so deep in the trenches, you know? Yeah,
You
when
can't
you're
really-
in it.
Yeah, and I think everyone kind of does that once, and we'll probably do it again. But
what other kind of growing pains did you guys have as you evolved?
Well, I mean, everyone's kind of had their staffing, you know, as you grow, you need more staff. I think just like for us, one of the biggest challenges has just been that building and the space that we're in not really being big enough. Yeah, so for us, that's been a bit of a struggle, just to find space for everything, staff, customers, product, everything like that. Like it's a little bit challenging, definitely, but we love that location and we love being downtown and the frontage that we have. It's incredible, but that's definitely been a bit of a struggle for sure. And then I think just like keeping on top of the books and everything like that. There was definitely a period where we kind of let it go, and didn't really have a bookkeeper for a while, and just not keeping on top of our profit and loss for a while. But yeah, now that's all taken care of, and not that it ever went bad, but it's just something that definitely always keep on top of the books.
It's hard if you don't have enough manpower to deal with the physical and the back of house stuff. Then you just like, there's a lot of balls in the air at one time, and you've just got to do with what you can. And again, it comes back to that, like some of the growing pains were not having everything available that customers wanted, and that was a really disheartening thing if we couldn't provide what they wanted. But also a good learning curve of just like, do what you do and do it well. Like we don't have the means, like we didn't have a working oven for the first 3 years of our opening. Like that was a huge thing. So we didn't have enough. We didn't have a working oven. We had some working hobs, and that was it. Like our first working oven was one of our regulars who used to come in, Lane, who used to own the Modern back in the day. Before it was a Modern, that's when it was.
Was Woolsey used to be where the Modern is or something like that?
Yeah.
Anyway, he was like an
you're going way, way
before,
back.
it's like a little amazing. He brought in a little convection oven, and that was just for us to even start making muffins with.
Yeah, he just wanted muffins. He was like, can you guys please just start making muffins? No more excuses. And I was like, okay.
Fine.
And I think just scaling up as well, like going from our so we used to make hummus in like a 2-cup KitchenAid food processor when we first opened. And now we have like a Hobart mixer that does like, I don't know how many liters of product, but just scaling up from this little $20 thing that we could afford from Home Hardware to then like the next one was a Breville, which is now at home because we cheaped out and we bought like another home food processor that lasted like 4 weeks in there before it got destroyed. And then we scaled up to a RoboCoupe, and now we're so just like scaling up so that we could make more and not be made constantly. Like we basically made hummus all day.
We'd have a staff member just like
just making hummus.
It was crazy.
Until we're like, we could just buy a bigger piece of equipment.
We could have bought hummus for cheaper than what we're doing it at. But
yeah. I like the idea too of like really bootstrapping it. So it's like some people would go like massively into debt, and not saying that you guys didn't, but massively into debt to get like everything that they're going to need in 10 years from now, you know, to build out this insane, whether it's like a kitchen or restaurant or whatever it is. But I really like the idea that you guys, you're like, okay, this is what's going to work right now. And also that might have helped too, to be like, okay, we got to just get the doors open. Build this out. We're going to do what's necessary. We're going to build the space, and we're going to do the things that really matter to us most. Like get the good coffee, get the espresso going, get like you know,
We're going to
making the
grow.
investments where it really, really made an impact, as opposed to it's like, is this really going to matter right now?
Yeah, for sure. And I think to anyone else like looking, and we've had a few people come up to us, like young people being like, oh, we'd love to do this. Like, you can do it. Like, don't let money be a barrier. Like, obviously you do need some finances for sure, but I mean, you can do it with next to nothing, as long as you have the essentials and a little bit spare. But even just looking now into, like, we're going to start roasting this year, and it's so weird to come into it and be like kind of doing what you said, like planning for the future and having like the right equipment from the get-go. Like, it feels so bizarre to us, like, whoa, do we really need to spend all this money? We could just go really ghetto like those. But
yeah
I think we were very lucky in the time that Revelstoke was at as well. Like, Darcy, a local dude who everyone knows, one of the smartest things or intellectual things he said to us, he's like, do you surf, man? I'm like, yeah, Darcy. He's just like, you caught the wave at the right time. And I'm like, yeah, we were really lucky. We had like a lot of people who we met and looked up to in town. Like, I heard the stories of Scott in the hot dog cart. There was Sarah from Birch and Lace, the guys at the Taco Club, you know, like there was all these really inspiring stories that gave us the will and belief to be like, yeah, it's achievable. And it was really cool. We lent on a lot of different people for advice, and it's cool to have that come back around now, and we've been giving some advice to people. But yeah, it definitely feels like we're a little bit spoiled this time when we're purchasing new equipment and the right size equipment, rather than just growing with what we had at that time as well. And that was a big thing. Like, we took everything out of our home to make that place feel like a living room. Like, there was no musket boards on the wall. Like, everything was in that place, all our speakers and everything. So I think I almost lost a big part of myself in that whole process, because we put our heart and soul into it. And then I went through a crazy period of like almost a year of not knowing who I was or where I was meant to, like, it was just a bit of a redefining or finding myself moment once I'd given so much of myself away to something else. I was like, am I Dose now, or am I John? I didn't know. It was a hard one to work out.
Yeah. Tell me, if you can, more about that. Like, was it partially because there was so much of you in this space that there wasn't as much left outside of the space?
I think both like physically and mentally, especially for the first like 3 years. Like, if we'd take a day off, it would be to like go to the hot springs and to soak our bodies, just to try and get like some kind of reprieve. But yeah, I think physically, like, our entire home was in that place. Financially, everything was in there, and emotionally as well. Like, I kind of thought I knew a little bit about people and people management. And it was quite a rude shock to realize how to encourage and support and and work with your team. And we cared so much. Like, the two most valuable parts of Dose that make Dose work is our staff and our customers. So actually being there for them in such a big way, I felt started to weigh on me a little bit. And then a big thing of saying hello to everyone in there, knowing them by name, knowing them as a person, that actually, it didn't wear on me whatsoever. But what would wear on me is if I couldn't remember that person's name or their interests or anything like that at that point. That would kind of weigh on me a little bit heavy. I'm like, I wanted to be a part of this community, and now I can't remember that person's name out of that community. So it was a double-edged sword in that respect as well.
It's pretty wild. Yeah, you give everything, and including your relationship. So it's
Mhm.
your
Yeah.
relationship also would have become for a
Mhm.
period of time at least about the business, about dose. So it's like,
Mhm.
okay, our relationship built dose, our relationship right now or for periods of time is focused on that.
Yeah.
It's focused on you're giving to your staff, you're giving to your community, you're creating this community, you're giving your literal physical possessions
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
all of your money, which also is like that's your security, you know. So it is what's left. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it still is like I think we've just gotten used to it, and I would never change anything for
Mhm.
the world. But I think your life just does change while you own a business, no matter how far down the road you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even at this stage, like you think you know a little bit more about it, but even starting the roastery and everything, we're still facing a lot of the same questions that we would have had when we were starting Dose with no business experience.
Mhm.
But I think the relationship one is two things.
Mhm.
Possessions physically actually help me in separation of any kind of physical things. Because when I'd see a kid destroying like a toy from the 1980s that was very dear to me, I'm like, it's okay, John. It's just a physical thing. Just let it go. So that was a really cool lesson as well. But then, like you were saying, our relationship, it was really hard to, I wouldn't say, we kind of had to almost not put that down, but that definitely fell by the wayside
Mhm.
in regards to Dose came first, our staff came first, and that was just a way that I guess it's kind of like having a kid in a sense.
Yep.
And it was a big eye opener, like thanks to my parents and anyone else's parents before us, like you get to see what it's like to give so much of yourself away to another cause.
Yeah. Yeah,
Mhm.
100. Oh, and I can attest to that. Yeah, I went down the exact same path where it was building a business with Scott and figuring out, okay, your relationship, first of all, definitely becomes secondary. You as people become secondary, and it becomes about building the business. You go home, you talk about the business, you talk about your business problems, and
Mhm.
then how did you guys navigate even the partnership element of it, and not necessarily separating the relationship, but who did what? Because and I asked that because that's something that I struggled with, is that we both wanted
Yep.
to run the business, run the day to day, and it took us a while to figure out where we were really best suited in the
Mhm.
company. And then for one of us, for me to kind of stand back and say, okay, you're the strategy guy, and I'll run the people. And then that
Yep.
ended up being, because that was my kind of area of strength, where I was like, okay, I can connect with the people and connect
Mhm.
with our team and help build our staff and mentor our staff and care for them, whereas you're focused on growth and
Mhm.
maybe more sales oriented and strategy oriented.
Yep.
Did you guys go through anything similar, or was it an easy delineation from the start?
Yeah, I mean, I think for the first like 3 years, like we were in there 5 days a week working on the tools kind of thing. So that didn't come into play so much as afterwards. Like basically when COVID came around, we kind of took a little bit of a step back, like after the period of closing for a little while. John had some surgery, and we had some really amazing staff who had the potential to manage the place for us basically, and it was either lose them because they didn't really want to just stay working on the floor all the time, or promote them and take a step back. So we kind of did a bit of a restructure then, loosely, and like I took back some things that I delegated in the first couple of years, like bookkeeping or anything like that, and started doing those myself so that we could then pay people to be in there to manage. And yeah, we're still kind of figuring out who does what exactly. Like we're both very hands-on when it comes to kind of like day to day, but we definitely have like our strengths and our weaknesses when it comes to that. And I think, yeah,
I'd say organically it worked itself out in the sense that I'm very much like you. I'm a people person, great at connecting with people, and kind of being, I reside more on that side and more of the marketing side or design, anything like that. Bit of a team leader in a sense,
Mhm.
but that's only such a small part compared to what Lauren does in the basically overall running of everything, all the books, everything like that. There's no way that I could run this business by myself
Mhm.
or without outsourcing a lot of that and paying like a lot of them, like basically all the profits to someone to keep it running.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm not allowed to be on the till in there. We work that out very fast because I just give everything away for free. So I take money off people. But it's not the best for the bottom line in the end, for sure.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
like you and I don't belong on the sale, like the
No.
sales side of things. It's
I'm
like,
sorry,
well, let's
you're
just
a
give
nice
him a
guy.
deal, or we'll just, yeah.
I haven't seen you in a while. Oh, here's this.
And we're just going to take John over here.
Yeah. But I think, yeah, at the start, like we've really learned as we've grown into it. And those first formidable years, it was just us in there and working physically. And we've only just been lucky enough to step away and get that time to work out our roles and what we play and what we bring to the table.
Yeah, it's been a little bit on and off because we kind of stepped away a little bit, and then last summer was kind of crazy, busy, and then just staffing wise, like we had our whole team for the summer, and then we had a few people dip out, just like random things like, oh, I've decided to move back to Ontario or whatever. So like we were kind of back in there for last summer, and now we're out again. So we'll see what this summer brings. Like we have all of our staff this summer, have an amazing team, but things happen. So we'll see where that takes us. At the moment, like we find that in the off season, that's when we're the busiest, planning, getting things ready, hiring, etc. And then we're ready if they need us in there. If not, then we'll keep working and planning for the roastery and stuff like that. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
On the staffing side, too, I had heard, because I know even through COVID and Revelstoke in general, staffing is always a big issue. But and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like as much as everybody has their staffing challenges as far as people leaving or disgruntled, whatever, you guys were one that I heard didn't have the same amount of problems, especially for a hospitality business, that a lot of other businesses or restaurant, like hospitality industry has. And you can, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I would have attributed that to the community that you've built, the values that you have, the leadership that you've given, and how you've created a really cool culture. What do you guys feel about that? Is that on or off, or?
I appreciate
You're like, actually, not at all. We have.
Oh yeah, it's been pretty amazing actually. Like we kind of felt almost a little bit guilty last summer because we did have just like, we had staff, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, kitchen's another story, but I think we were one of the only places in town that was able to operate 7 days a week, or like our regular hours.
Totally.
So I'm not saying, like, we had some amazing staff that made that happen, like Jamie, our head chef, and Adi, our manager, and like everyone else underneath them. Some of them pulled really long weeks on the odd occasion to make that work. But yeah, we didn't have to close it all. So yeah, that's amazing. John does all the hiring at the moment for front of house, and we also find it's timing. Like you've really got to, we find you get an influx in end of March, sort of April, when people are shifting up for the summer. They're maybe leaving their job at the resort and then looking for something more local, kind of like what we did. So you've really got to seize that opportunity while it's there, because the resumes do dry up come April, May. So we tend to hire a little bit early and just like find hours for people through like spring cleaning or like whatever, getting people trained up early. But that sets us up for a good summer.
I think it's like us not being too far out of being employees as well into the more employer side is really remembering how you like to be treated as a staff. So like I just went and got a birthday gift for one of our staff. Our staff parties are really important to us, whether it's be like taking more wakeboarding. We've got a place down on Airport Way that we that we take them as well. And yeah, it's just really like, it's a hard thing, people manage, like not management, but just like, yeah, just treating them as you'd like to be treated, and remembering, like, seeing the person, not the employee, is a big thing, I think.
Yeah. It's
sure.
so common. And this is like, I work with people on this. That's my job, is leadership and keeping teams together and developing teams. And it's not that complicated. And often it comes down to treating people with respect.
Yeah.
and making them feel like a family, and building a community, and valuing them.
Yeah, and I think we lay down the foundations for that, but then it's really amazing to see them like take that upon themselves. Then like they have their own little like Facebook group chat, and they're really active on there, and they're inviting each other to things, so they all become really good friends, and it's really beautiful to see. But yeah, it's not without first like making sure that we have like good morals, and we treat them with respect, and then that sort of carries through.
It's funny, people get in their own little worlds, and then it is constant upkeep. But if you take your foot off the pedal with that constant upkeep and checking in on how they're doing as a person, then they can get in their own mind about the way that a certain thing could be. And then the same thing with you. You might get in your mind and have a different perception on what that person is, when really you just need to sit down and have a conversation. And if I find the more conversations you have, and the more you see them as who they are, and trying to get to know them, like their genuine, like their interests, what their hobbies are, like what moves them as a person. Like, it was a really hard thing for me to work out that dose wasn't ever a forever job for people. It's not a stepping stone either, but it can be utilized as an area to work out what you want to be, and actually move in that direction, rather than just like, that's one of the things that in the hiring process, I ask people what they want to be when they grow up, and how we can help move them in that direction, rather than just getting stagnant and working in a job where they go to get paid to pay rent, to eat, and just do all the basic living things where they could be excelling in life.
And you guys have figured out so many things that it takes people 20 years to sort out. You really have on the community, and it definitely, like everything you just said on the leadership side of things, it's a lot of people think, okay, well, I'll hire them and kind of like, oh, I'll check in on them, and checking in is once or twice a year, asking them how are you doing? Oh, okay, great, bye. But exactly, you said, that's a consistent thing. And leadership is not, it's similar to taking care of your business or taking care of a child. That's it. It's every day. It's every week. It's always, and also forever. It's not like you do enough of it and then that bucket's full and you can move on and do something else and don't need to think about it ever again, or for 6 months. It's like, oh no, that drains quickly.
In general with business as well, you can never really like be like, oh, once we get to this point, it's all going to be perfect, and like we're just going to live the dream.
Totally. Yeah.
No, it's like you just have to appreciate every little moment along the way, because I don't think you ever get to that perfect point where there's never going to be no issues or no problems. There's always something. Something.
I just used to hold on to my day off. I'm like, oh, but it's meant to be my day off. I don't want to work, but like, no, there's things that happen, and it forces you to be a better person, to be that leader for your people as well. It's like, no, you can't be hungover, because you've got to be there for your team if shit goes down, or that's just an example, but like you've got to be there for them. It's kind of crazy having a purpose that's I can't even put it into words.
And I think as well, like sometimes I just tell myself, I'm like, oh my God, it's just a cafe. Like, how hard can it be? But I think if you think that way, like you kind of beat yourself up a little bit. Like, why aren't we doing better? Why is this so hard, kind of thing? Like, no matter the scale of your business, no matter what it is that you do, you just have to give yourself that grace, and just like, it is a hard job. And yeah, it doesn't matter if it's just a cafe, like it is hard kind of thing to run. Because sometimes otherwise you can kind of beat yourself up and be like, am I crazy? Like how is it not running perfectly by now? But that's just me. I'm kind of like more of a perfectionist and like things to be a certain way, but just letting go of that and just knowing that it's always a work in progress.
And you go through these phases too, right? So it's similar to, again, having a kid. You're like, well, I made it through the baby phase, so I should be fine. It's like, no, now they're a toddler, now they're a preteen, now they're a teenager. So every stage as you build and grow, you're like, oh, now it's just new challenges and
that's true.
New things different. And new,
I think realizing that life is in flux and it's you just do what you can with what you have, and you just move. You have to keep moving with it, otherwise you'll get left behind.
Yeah, very well said. I had a coach that told me, he's like, people think and they get really disillusioned that you're like climbing this mountain, and then when you get to the top of the mountain, all of a sudden everything's going to be great, like in life. He's like, but what we don't sometimes always realize is that the mountain just gets steeper the farther along you go. He's like, it doesn't, maybe for some people, if you're 75 and retired, and maybe then it plateaus, maybe, but he's like, for the most part, he's like, it just gets steeper and steeper, and that's where we can get caught up and like, it should be easier by now. But it's like, that's not necessarily life. Especially not running a business.
And it's kind of, it's a little bit like, some people might see the business owner as, oh, they've got it. It's all perception. Like it's the same as when you see someone with a BMW and you think they're happier and living a better life than you. No, they might be just broken up with their wife, lost their kids, like something like we really like to envision things the way that we'd like to see them. But as a business owner, you do go through a lot of uncertain times, worrying times, stressful times, and everything like that. So it's what you see on the surface. I guess that generic iceberg business poster you see in offices, I guess that's kind of like, it's a good depiction of everything that you go through to still be standing at the end of it, and you only get to see that tiny little bit of success at the top.
Yeah, they're like, oh, John and Lauren, that dose, they're just must be living it up.
I feel guilty. I've started like buying new clothes because they're not going to get trashed, or not even just like, I feel guilty if when I put something new on, I'm like, oh man, I hope people don't think I'm like rolling in money like Scrooge McDuck or some shit. No, it's just finally got to that stage where I can give myself back a little bit. And back to the mountain.
How dare you?
Yeah, back to the mountain thing as well. I found like, if you ever do get to, I'm not going to say it's the top, but like a little ledge where you've achieved some stuff, then you also have this really empty feeling of what to do next, which I'm sure you've faced, and you kind of like, you start second guessing everything all over again. So I don't think anyone ever knows anything, and we're all just trying our best.
That is, I could not agree more. Yeah. And so let's touch on, and we can wrap up soonish if you guys are good to keep going for a bit, because I could chat with you guys for a whole nother hour easy. Okay, so let's talk about what's next for you. So we've got the roaster happening. Is that going to be, can you let us in, is that going to be on a new location? Is that going to be on site?
Yeah, so we are going to be in the Powerhouse industrial area. Yeah, so a bigger space, about 2,000 square foot. So for that one, we need to be in like a light industrial area. So we've chosen Powerhouse out that way, which is pretty exciting. So that will be kind of, we'll be roasting coffee towards the end of the year. But there's a lot going on at the moment. We're already building out. We're going to do a little bit of a rebrand, or just like level up of our brand, since we will be trying to tap into the domestic and international market online. So we've got a company back home in Melbourne working on that at the moment. Some people that we've always really looked up to in the design world and feel really lucky to be working with them on that. And then we have one of our staff, Lemmy, is in Portland at the moment. He just took a 3-day course on the machine that we'll be using, which is a Loring roaster.
Yep.
We went with that one because it's quite efficient. It recycles a lot of the energy that it uses. Yeah.
I don't want to say it's environmentally friendly, but it's a shit ton. Like everyone, I don't want to jump on sustainable or anything like that, but its emissions and outputs is a quarter of a regular drum roaster. So we're excited.
It's a lot cleaner. So like as far as like kind of roasters have a bit of that perception of being like smelly or anything like that. If you're in that neighborhood, there's sort of none of that either, which is great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, guys, this is so exciting. I feel like I'm realizing that some of the things that I like to see the most are like epic leadership, and then also these like really cool growth. Like just growth plans, and then just watching them be able to come to fruition, which we will by the end of the year, because that's a big one.
We're
so excited.
We've been working on this for a while now, and it's just been a matter of, well, we kind of figured like we'll find the space first and then we'll order the roaster. So we thought we had found our space, so we ordered the roaster, and then we were told that it would be 12 months in production to get it to us. So that was last October. And here we were thinking that it would take about 2 months to get to us. And since then we've switched up our location again and everything like that. But so the end of this year is when it will all kind of take shape. And we're pretty excited to be roasting our own coffee, and hopefully roasting coffee for some other places locally. And then shipping all across Canada and hopefully overseas.
And is there a dream of what the type of coffee or what it's going to be like? Is there anything? And this is like coming from somebody who doesn't know nearly anything about coffee, but what is it you guys are kind of creating here?
We want to make, so there's filter, decaf, and espresso coffee.
Gotcha.
What we want to make is, I think the specialty coffee world has done a pretty awful job of inviting everyone in to drink coffee. I believe there's coffee out there for everyone and the way that you want to drink it. So our offering, we want to put our twist on it, but we definitely want to be thoughtful of like our community to start with and the surrounding town. So it's going to be a bit of we'll have our three base offerings, which will be your everyday kind of coffee. And then we'll have an upper tier, which will be a little bit more funky, fruity, a little bit more for the curious, or to explore the world of coffee a little bit deeper. If you look back, like, I don't like comparing it to beer whatsoever or wine, but go back 5 years, 6 years, not even that, where all the taps were just Molson. So I'd call that like your first wave cause. Like that's first wave of beer. Second wave,
Steamworks.
I'd almost put Steamworks or something like that in there. And then like your third wave, you've got all your craft breweries and your microbreweries that have popped up. So
guys.
Beer taps have they've diversified, and people are yearning and wanting a different taste. And it's just the same as coffee. Coffee is like Folgers first wave, Nescafe Gold kind of thing. And you got Starbucks second wave, third wave. In the next 10 years, you're going to see as many roasters as what you see microbreweries, like mini roasters everywhere is what you'll see microbreweries. And that's just started to really take shape in Canada at the moment. There's a lot of great little micro roasties popping up everywhere. So I think it'll be on the same trajectory as that. Yeah,
we definitely want our our baseline range, like John was saying, which is our espresso blend, a single origin filter and a decaf, to be really approachable. and a great everyday coffee. And then we will have those rotating single origins that we've already sort of started sourcing. We actually got our first sample roaster a couple of months ago, so we have that set up in our kitchen.
Yeah.
So we've been getting samples from like quite a few different importers from around the country and roasting on that every week and testing a bunch of coffees. So we're already starting to formulate what our curating our menu essentially for the first 12 months. Coffee is very seasonal. It's just like any other fruit. And so depending on the time of the year in whatever country, that's when you have to buy their coffee. So we're coming into the season now where we have to start thinking about what coffees we want to buy from Ethiopia if we want to have them on our menu next year.
Because that's the season. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, it's essentially just like a fruit, just like anything else. They all have their different characteristics, flavors, profiles, and everything like that. So we're excited to showcase a little bit of that, but at the same time, we also really want to have that great everyday drinking coffee that will remain consistent and just, the same year round.
Yeah, our big philosophy behind this is we've bashed on about community as much, whatever. We intended to start a cafe. And we didn't really mean to create this community out of it, but it was a beautiful byproduct. And now what we really want to do is connect with that community. So Dave Pearson has probably been drinking the same coffee ever since, and he doesn't have to change.
Seems like the guy. Yeah.
Yeah, but I thought he'd be a good example. He's one of the people who I'm taking into consideration for the end product of our coffee. So our big philosophy about this is connecting with that community that we've created. And it's something that we all do, but it could be done with a little bit more intent. And it's something to be enjoyed and explored. And if we do it every day, why don't we give it our best and do it well? So that's within that. I think a big part of that will be, we're going to start doing public cuppings. So we'll just have a bunch of different coffees. You come along and slurp it out of a little spoon, and that's going to be public cuppings that we'll do weekly at Dose. And that will in turn give us a good direction on what everyone feels like, and give us a good sense of direction to take with what our end offering will be as well.
Yeah. Oh, geez, genius. That's so good. Okay, so let's do some wrap up questions, and I'll do a little quick summary because that's so much that we covered here, but just the themes and the talks about community, it's really interesting to see, because what I've seen out of this conversation, even especially for you, John, is it's this how important it is, and it's been to you whether you realized it when you came to Revelstoke or not, but even just making the conscious choice that hey, we're not Whistler people, we're not Banff people, we're looking for a community, even when you came here, which is what Revelstoke is. And I think a lot of people come here for that. They realize that, this feels like a real town, more so than, not to say anything about Whistler or Banff, but more so, right, with more character, a little bit less cookie cutter, a lot less. We'll see where the community goes, but that's so awesome. And just what we've learned from you guys on leadership and what you've done building everything out, it's been so impressive, and it's really exciting of where you're taking this. I had no idea, and that is going to be really awesome for the community to see, because you've just I kind of said it before, but I'll say it again. I just feel like you really nailed so many elements, and I think the success of your business, where your staff is at, is also a very clear indicator of that too.
Thank you.
So thank you guys for what you've brought to our community, to this community, and what you've created, because I think Revelstoke really appreciates it, because it's very unique and really special.
I really appreciate it, and thanks for letting us to be a part of the community as well.
Our hope with the roastery as well is to have another space that we can invite people into, to educate and show them what we get up to behind the scenes. And that'll be a little bit more of an intimate experience than Dose. So we'll have a tasting bar, much like going up to Begbie Brewery or anything like that. And it'll be a great way to educate people in a much more chill sort of environment where people can sit down and have a good yarn about coffee, try different coffee. And also hopefully the goal there would be to have a bit of a training area as well for up and coming staff or people who are curious about coffee or anything like that. And so we're hoping to be able to give back in that way. And, you know, other cafes, if they need somewhere to train their staff or anything like that, or if they need someone to train their staff, like, you know, I think the best thing is to, for the success of everyone is to create a great product, and for our whole town as a whole to be a great product in terms of coffee and hospitality. So, yeah.
And that is something, like, we have a really vibrant food and beverage scene.
We really do.
I think a little bit more of a tourism light could be shone on that, because without that fuel, the Sammy Carlsons can't be doing his backflips, and like the big pro bike riders and skiers and everyone that are very attracted to this town. We need them as much as they need us, in a sense of, this is something that we could all be working out together in a little bit more of a, I don't even know how to say it, but I feel like we're lucky to have the food and beverage scene that we do in this town, and it could be celebrated a little bit more.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because I feel like we do probably really take it for granted. I think we have over 40 plus restaurants, which for a community of our size and population is pretty crazy. So there is such a variety. And I agree. I don't think it's celebrated enough.
And not to say that in a bad light, like, it's really cool. But there's so many different cuisines represented in this town, and there's a lot of people that go to work day after day, and like they put their heart and soul into it, and it's just the same as a pro bike rider going out and putting all that time and effort into getting that triple backflip or whatever it may be. It's the same kind of process that we're all going through. I guess it's just life that we're all going through.
I think
dedicated. Pardon?
I was just going to say, as the town evolves, like, I think more events or more things that shine a spotlight on the scene or hospitality will come about.
So for you guys, so we ask a closing question to everybody, which is, what is, if you could think of it, the most average thing about you, about each one of you? We drink coffee.
Oh wow. Okay. Unprepared for this one.
Sorry. Mine, if you need a example, was that I'm afraid of the dark.
You think? I'm thinking.
You're thinking?
Yeah.
Most average thing.
Oh my goodness.
This is a really good one. This should be put into like my questions I ask the staff.
Oh my goodness. Probably my jokes. That's for sure average. Below average.
Yeah. My most average thing. I'm really simple. Can I just steal yours and say I drink coffee? I don't.
You feed it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, it's not that.
Okay.
Okay, and then finally, how can people find you guys? How can people learn more about Dose? I know you guys also have a Spotify channel, which I learned in my research. That was exciting.
Oh, cool.
So give us all of your accounts or tags that anybody could go to to find more about Dose.
So yeah, you can follow us on social media. We've got Instagram and Facebook, and that is at Dose Coffee Revelstoke. Our website, www.dosecoffee.ca, and if you ever want to hit us up by email, it's lauren@dosecoffee.ca.
Awesome. Okay. Yes. Well, thank you guys so much. We'll sign off there, and we'll see you in the coffee shop.
See you soon.
Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Ciao.